Okay, go ahead and call this meeting to order. First time on the agenda is roll call.
Alderman Arnold.
Here.
Alderman Edley.
Here.
Alderman West.
Here.
Alderman Sully.
Here.
Alderman Shaver.
Here.
Alderman Thompson.
Here.
You're the quorum present.
Okay. Next time on the agenda is the invocation. I'll be led by Pastor David Hutchinson from Faith United Methodist Church. Be followed by a pledge of allegiance from Alderman Shaver.
Will you bow your heads and pray with me? Holy God, we ask for you to bless all those who have gathered here this evening, to bless our community, and to continue to bless our leaders and our people as we discern the best way forward for our fair city and for its due administration. Continue to grant us all of your mercies and all of your love as we seek to follow your will in all that we do. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we do the approval of the agenda, I have a statement that I need to read. The statement was sent to me today from Alexa Barton, so I'm going to read that now, and I guess we'll put that in the record, Jamie. Okay. Like I said, this is from Alexa Barton, and these are her words. It says, after conferring with the mayor and meeting with the Board of Aldermen last week, and arrangement has been decided upon, Ms. Alexa Barton, City Administrator, has announced that she will be stepping down from her post. Ms. Barton states this is an exciting time in Grand Valley, and I believe that much has been accomplished in my 3 years as Administrator. A few I'm most proud of are launching a $3 million second phase of Main Street improvements at no additional cost to the city, generation of over 200 new jobs to the city in the last year, a debt reduction of 11%, and the fact that Grand Valley per capita leads Jackson County cities in issuing single-family permits. Needless to say, it has been a rewarding experience, and I will miss the community and the many wonderful staff that supported me and helped me take the city in such a positive direction. Ms. Barton came to the Grand Valley in September 2011 from Clay County, Missouri, where she served as county administrator for 5 of the 11 years she was there. Her overall experience in local, state, and federal government administration spans a total of 29 years. Ms. Barton states local government operations and economic development are evolving at a rapid pace, especially in Grand Valley, and I wish the city the best in her efforts to grow this great city. Barton goes on to say, I leave with no regrets and take with me extensive experiences to pursue other ventures in the metro area. Ms. Barton's date of separation is effective immediately. Okay, next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do we have any additions to the agenda?
No additions.
Mayor. All right. Next item then are proclamations for acts of heroism.
Proclamation, whereas now and then we hear of individuals performing an extraordinary, selfless act of kindness that restores our faith in the human race. And whereas an example of such selflessness was recently demonstrated when Carrie and Stacy Dion took upon themselves to enter a burning home, locate their neighbor, and rescue her from harm. And whereas those actions were displayed by Carrie and Stacy Dion on December 10, 2013 at 918 West Ryan Road. And whereas Dion's are recognized for this conspicuous act of valor and heroism by a citizen under hazardous conditions in which the person is placed in a life-threatening position to save the life of another prior to the arrival of the fire department. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed, the City of Grand Valley Board of Aldermen, and I, Mayor Mike Todd, do hereby honor and thank Carrie and Stacia Behan for their unselfishness and extraordinary act of kindness. Dated this 22nd day of September 2014, Mike Todd, Mayor.
Okay, next on my agenda is citizen participation. We ask the citizens step forth to the podium and microphone, and please give your name and address for the record. Do I have any citizens who wish to address the board this evening?
Joe Panza, 620 Southwest Creek Ridge Drive. I was listening to the tape last week about Schaefer saying that he'd talked to some banditos and the racetrack was too loud, and heard everybody erupt in laughter. They were at our meeting Wednesday night, so we asked them to see if they could send emails out to find out, you know, what Casey's and who he talked to and da-da-da-da. Can you clarify what Casey's it was and what time it was?
Joe, as I told you when you called, I go to Casey's, I pass one every day when I go to work and come home from work. It may not have been at Casey's, it may have been at Blue Springs. I mean, if this is what you want to hunt and look for,
I'm just asking which
fine.
Casey's you were at, because you stated Casey's.
You know what, Joe, like I said, when you called me about this the other day, I go to Casey's on a regular basis, probably. And I don't want to give you a percentage because you'll probably want to trace my percentage down, but I go to Casey's when I go to and from work every day I pass one. You know, it boils down to I was getting gas, and a gentleman on a bike that was a banditos was
You said
a
you
conversation.
talked to several of them.
No, it was a conversation. It was a short conversation. It didn't amount to nothing, basically. How was it? You know, I don't know why you're making a big thing of it, but
If it wasn't nothing, then why'd you say anything?
if I told you I was at a Casey's and I wasn't, I misspoke. Sorry.
Trying to get to the bottom of it to find out where you were at when you talked to them, so we could find out which banditos you talked to.
I don't know, Joe. It could have been Blue Springs. It could have been, you know, I don't know what you're looking for, but
I just asked. That's all.
I'm just telling you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anyone else wish to address the board?
Dennis Trout, Valley Speedway, 24300 Strode Road. I'm not up here to complain. We got a lot of issues in front of us, so we're going to have plenty of time to go over them. I just would like to thank Ryan Hunt for taking the time to go out and talk to Walt at K&H Communications. They have been looking at ground to leave this town. They employ 50 people and are getting ready to hire another 125. I think when everyone went out and first talked to him, I think Walt ripped his head off over some issues that he had, and he took the time to listen to him and address the issues, and I think maybe we have a shot of keeping a business in this community that buys $10,000 of gas every week, and if they put all the people on, they'll be buying about $50,000 a week at the Conoco station. So, again, I just want to thank Ryan, and also I realize you're going to have some positions become available, and I would strongly ask that they look within the city. You guys got a lot of good people in this city that I think can do the job that needs to be done in the police department and other places that I hope you give them a shot at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else wish to address the board? All right. Seeing none, move on to the consent agenda.
I move we accept the consent agenda.
I have a motion from Alderman Scully to accept the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Alderman Arnold. Any discussion over the consent agenda? All right. Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right. Next time, we have an executive session, and we have needs for executive session under legal actions, and that's it. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn executive session for items pertaining to legal actions. Motion from Alderman West, second Alderman Arnold. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Alderman Arnold?
Yes.
Alderman West? Alderman Headley?
Yes.
Alderman Scully?
Yes.
Alderman Schaefer?
Yes.
Alderman Johnston? All right, we'll adjourn executive session.
There was an individual who's trying to get your.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I'm a visitor. I just want to approach the board.
Yeah, you can reflect.
My name is Brian Grant from Northeast Baptist Church. I'm the pastor there. I have the opportunity to volunteer to work at the racetrack with Dennis Stroud. I just wanted to tell you the things that he allows my church to do with him donating to my nonprofit organization. We get to send kids to camp. Over the 5 years I've worked there or volunteered there, I sent 120 kids to camp. This year I've had the opportunity to give 60 kids school supplies for their schools for inner city kids. The racetrack does not affect this community and my life. It affects Independence, Missouri, where most of my kids are at, and also the northeast area by Prospect and Van Brunt. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I just pray and hope that it can stay open, that I continue to minister my kids and they can keep going to school. Thank you.
All right. Okay, call this meeting back to order. Next item on the agenda are presentations. First presentation is the third quarter 2014 economic development update from Developers Marketing Group.
Rip coming up next, and I want to run through just a few minutes here of some of the things we're working on. We're still going through with the plan as presented at the first of the year. Those things are on track. A couple of things we're going to, I like to be flexible for opportunities to come up, and we have a big one that I'm going to talk about and show you an example here pretty soon. Okay. First of all, you all are aware of the Medical Revenue Solutions company that's coming in down at Snipewalk Flat. They're projected to hire about 60 folks. They are in the process of doing that now. Ramping up that. It's a medical auditing company that's coming over from Oak Grove. And we also, you may have seen the stop has closed now. They are preparing that will be demolished. I don't know what day they're going to start. I thought it would already have been done by now, but that is under contract. That was bank-owned property, and I don't know who's going in there. I have an idea that what I think, but I don't want to say what if I don't know. But it's, I think, C-store type and fast food and some other type of service operations, but it is under contract. So we'll be seeing a change there, and I know that it's kind of an ugly spot right now, and that's going to help us a lot, help with that whole corridor there. On the northeast corner, Green Valley Marketplace, we have had conversations with the big box that you all are aware of, and those are continuing. We now have a new developer that kind of been in the mix a little bit the last several months, but he is now, and this guy has done projects all over the Kansas City region. He has clients that he does their stores for every time they build in the region. We have a meeting either Wednesday or Thursday this week. Got Ryan and I and the TIF attorney and Springstead. They've kind of been going back over the last 2 years with I don't want to say negotiations, but offers, and they want a lot. There's no question. They want the city to put in a lot to get them, and it's not a lot of analysis that we have to go through on is it worth it then? If we don't do it, how long can we wait? If we don't do it, what else happens? Or do we need to go ahead and give them what they want now? So we've got them and hope that the best happens. It's a difficult situation. We're going to know more Wednesday or Thursday, and I mean, it's a fantastic project. It's just, you hope you're not getting used because you're desperate, and that's what you don't want to be, and that's what all of us are going to have to figure out here pretty soon. What they tell us is the reason is that it will cannibalize some of their other stores in the area by building one here, and they don't see it being profitable for 3 or 4 years. And so what they're doing, they're betting on the come of additional houses going up north, so they're getting their spot, and they want us to help them make it through that first few years until things are going good. And so stay tuned to that, and that's, I'm sure Ryan will keep you filled in on that project. And once we get that, the rest of the project fills out. It's just like that. There are plenty of other smaller stores They're just waiting for that second big box to come in there, and it'll fill out. It's just, you do it now, or you do it later, and that's what we're gonna have to figure out. I'm working with the owners of the Brass Armadillo. They're based up in Iowa, Ankeny, Iowa, and they want to do a project there. I've got some data for them. They're still not sure if they want to do an expansion or do something totally different or just market the property. So I put together demographics for them and some additional information. We're going to work through that. The building permits, I want to mention, I think you all have all seen that. We are number 3 in the county for new housing permits for the first 3 months of, or first 8 months of the year. I think in her letter, Alexa's letter, she said we're number 1 per capita, but as far as just sheer numbers, we're behind Lee Summit and Blue Spring. That's a great sign, and that's something that I'm sending to every retailer out there. I told you the growth was going to come, and it's coming. And we think by talking to David Ward and others, I think that's only going to grow and continue. So that's really, really good news for us. And we pass that on to, obviously, to the developer that's working with the big box there. Maybe that's going to happen. That's 3 or 4 years they think it's going to take to be profitable. That's going to get here quicker. We all know one of our targets is, and the sore spot here, is a medical service provider. We lost out only one, and with Chief Ambrose's help, we've been in negotiations or talks with one of the big local providers. I'm not sure what's going to happen yet. Unfortunately, they just opened an urgent care center up in Blue Springs, which is at the moment, based on our demographics, a little too close. But with our growth, perhaps here soon in the future, it could mean we could get one of the urgent cares. But in the meantime, they're looking at potentials for some of their doctors to maybe come down here part-time so that we can at least take care of people. So that is high on our list of the things we need to accomplish, and we're not just talking to them, but other ones as well that are in the area. K&H Communications was brought up. We found out about that issue in our Economic Development Advisory Committee meeting 2 weeks ago, and I know that David Ward reached out to him. I know that Ryan reached out to him, and we're in the process of setting a meeting now to perhaps where I will be and to find out what type of employees they're needing to hire, what additional ground do they need, and is that the right place for them, or would some place on the outskirts of town or some other place in Green Valley be better for them? And so it's to get a better understanding of what their needs are and what we can do to help them. And that we haven't got that set, but I think in the next week or so that's going to happen. One of the things we've been doing with Krista on the team is it's kind of a new way of doing it, helping existing businesses, and that's promoting them on our Facebook fan page. We've made a ton of calls to people, and they tell us everything's fine, they don't need to meet, they'll call us if they have a problem, but in the meantime, we can help them by promoting what they're doing on our Facebook fan page. And if you look on there, you'll see that we've done that for Maravich, for Green Valley Bank, O'Reilly's, McDonald's, Snybar, Plaza, when they've had things, the racetrack. So anytime there's something going on, we get it on our Facebook fan page, and we've got over 400 followers there that see that. So it's just kind of a new fangled way to be helping your existing businesses. Now what I want to show you is, we have a spec building that Ward's are building. It was just fantastic news for us, over 100,000 square feet. And my challenge is to get that filled with a manufacturing company before he has somebody that maybe just wants to do distribution or warehouse, because I want to get a bunch of good jobs in there. And so I've challenged him to that. We talked about it the other day, and I go, look, don't take the first person that comes that's just a warehouse. Let's get a good manufacturing company in there. This is, when I talked about being flexible with things that are offered, we have a great relationship with Kansas City. Really good relationship with Kansas City Power and Light, and they help us do a lot of economic development things. And I used to work there before it was KCP, and one of the things I told their ED team is we need more help with sites, buildings, and how we market them. And what I handed to you is the 12 pages there is a request for information that we got from a client, a consultant, corporate location consultant 2 weeks ago, and we had returned to them in 48 hours over Labor Day weekend. And look at the sheer volume of that information. There's things on there I've been doing this for 25 years I've never heard of. And so, now that's not typical of what we get, that's more involved than what we normally get, but we get them like that. And we've got to have that information, we've got to have it ready right now. So, I wanted you to be able to see some of the things we get asked. So we need, ask City Council to help us get all this together in one piece, in one place, so that when we make these requests, we can either send them an email, or send them to our website, we can send them something in the mail overnight that has all that in there. We don't have to go dig it up. We don't have to go get an environmental study done that takes 6 months, cost $3,500 that we don't have time to do. So we're going to get that all done now. And here's what we're working on. All right, what do I hit? This is a county economic development company up in Indiana, I believe, and this is a building industrial park. That they're modeling. The video you're going to see is a drone flying over.
Welcome to the North 41 Industrial Park
Let's take a
building,
look.
located in Gibson County, Indiana. Gibson County communities offer a distinct and small-town charm with a laid-back suburban living. Known for lovely tree-lined streets, beautiful two-story homes, wide retail business districts, and a number of
State where you watch it, but it's actual video from a drone that is being controlled on the ground right below there.
Ag-related businesses can be tracked to a superb educational system, aligning both K-12 and institutions of higher learning.
So this will be the spec building at Lord's, and then we can take it over to Green Valley Marketplace and get the video of that and all the available around there, and then we can take it right down Main Street. And you'll see the graphics that they put on there, is we control those graphics.
Accessed by heavy rail and Highway 41. Highway 41 provides a west side artery that feeds many manufacturers in Gibson County. Other features of the transportation inventory include Interstate 64 heading east and west, Interstate 69 slightly north and south. Gibson County is located a few miles south of the U.S. median population center, making travel and distribution key destination points easy, affordable, and attractive.
And the drone's flying with it. As long as it's below 400 feet.
And feature parking for up to 250 automobiles and 90 spaces for trailers. Inside features 650 horsepower flooring with 128.
Now, those are still pictures inside the building, but there's also a smaller drone that can fly into the building. That one, you can build it wide open, but if it has hallways, you can fly this little drone right down or into special rooms and hallways.
Employing nearly 5,000 people, while suppliers Tech, Toyota Susho, Toyota Moshiko, Millennium Steel, Green Metals, Gibson County Quality Assurance, and others employ thousands more. Princeton's population is 8,900, with a county population base of 34,000, and a 24-county population base of 820,000. Not quite a 20-minute drive from Vanderbilt County, Indiana, located to Evansville Regional Airport. 20 minutes to a water authority nearby Lee County, and a 2-hour drive to Nashville, Tennessee.
So the guy flying it is right down there, that little truck. It's going over right now.
When it comes to living, working, and relaxing, Gibson County is situated perfectly for industry, tourism, and residents. A world-class community is Princeton's new slogan, and defined by a recent infusion of $20 million in grants dedicated to revitalizing the downtown district. Princeton is cruising for 2 centuries of life, and doing so with a throttle wide open. So grab up your engine by visiting Princeton and meet Gibson County, North 41 Industrial Park Building, the home.
Okay, so that's going to happen here in Green Valley out the week of October 13th. We have partnered Gibson Power and Light with Jackson County and Green Valley Bank, to make this happen. That's about a $5,000 video right there, which is way cheaper than what they used to be. We're gonna cut some of the costs because Krista Claus will do the voice. We won't have to pay for somebody to do that. Krista and I'll write the copy, and so we'll cut out probably $1,000 there. And it takes them about 3 months to get all that done. Blue Springs is doing 10 sites, so they will be here. The people that own the drones will come down from Indiana for a week of October 13th. I'm not sure what day we're going to have them yet, and hopefully it's not storming. And we got to do it before the leaves fall off the trees, so it's going to happen quick. So they'll do Blue Springs and us over a 2-day period, and we'll have the drone out. And unfortunately, the building's not going to be far enough along, but they'll be able to see the ground, and then we can do with graphics what's going to happen there. We'll show all the infrastructure coming up. We'll show a highway with 70,000 cars a day and the other things that are going on. So it's really, really cool, and it's not going to cost us anything. It's all covered. So, but that's just sort of, that'll be just for the spec building. I'll have to raise additional money to get to do the retail and then come down Main Street. And maybe we do that the next time, just one project at a time. The other people, the developer will kick in as well. We just haven't negotiated it out with David Ward. He hasn't seen this yet, but he heard us talking about it, and he's all excited about it. So, look for that here. That's just a couple of weeks away. We'll be one of the only communities in America. This is where the people who own the company lived in that county. That's why they were the first ones. So, the Kansas City region, and Green Valley and Blue Springs will be one of the first in this area to have something like that. It'll be available as a link that I can send to somebody, say, look at this. It can be on our website. I can send it, and we can do it in high def and low def. I can put it in an email and a low def, but I can take it to trade shows on a flash drive, put it on the laptop. So it's something we always have, and it's, the consultants love that. It's, and where they can see what's all around. So many times all they'll know is what's on this particular site, and a building, and then it's maybe a bunch of stuff around it that they don't want. This way they can see everything that's around the building or piece of ground they're looking at, so it's very valuable to them, but they may not make a wasted trip here to see it. So, that's really cool. We're going to make that happen here in a couple of weeks, and I'll let you know when it's going to happen, and maybe we'll come out and invite you guys out, and you can watch it happen. Alderman Schaefer can fly the drone a little bit, see how that goes.
That'd be a challenge.
So to finish up, we've had 2 ED advisory council meetings this last quarter. I'll be at the International Council of Shopping Centers, the big retail show in Chicago next week, next Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then the Kansas City Area Development Council annual meeting is November 14th. I know Green Valley has a table at that, and you will be invited to go with us to that. With that, I'll open up to questions.
Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next presentation then is Grand Valley Comprehensive Plan from Brett Blomberg with Design Workshop. Okay. Hmm?
Could go ahead and do discussion or put him with that.
No. If you could. Jim, is there any reason I can't move on, knock a couple of these other things out while he does this?
Sorry?
Is there any reason I can't move on to the agenda and knock a couple of...
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, while he's setting that up, then we're gonna move on and knock a couple of these other things out. Next item then is discussion, update conditional use permit for racetrack recreation area. Do you have any updates on that? Okay. Seeing no new business then, or previous business. Move on to ordinances then.
This is bill number B 14-20. It is the second reading, and it will be ordinance 2342, an ordinance to establish the City of Green Valley, Missouri's annual tax levies for 2014 calendar year for general municipal government operations, retirement of general obligation debt, park maintenance, and public health purposes. Second reading, ordinance 2342.
I move that we accept Bill B 14-20 for its second reading, making it ordinance number 2342.
I have a motion from Alderman West to accept Bill B 14-20 for its second reading, making ordinance 2342. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Alderman Scully. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Arnold?
Yes.
Headley?
Yes.
Johnston?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Sully?
Yes.
West?
Yes.
6-0, Mayor.
Okay. With that then, you ready now? All right. We'll move back on up to presentations, Grand Valley Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you. Brett Palmer Design Workshop, we've been consulting working on the comprehensive plan for the last year here. We presented the comprehensive plan in summary form to the Planning Commission last Wednesday, and I was presenting the comprehensive plan here to the Board of Aldermen, and then will be adoption potentially in October, right? Next meeting. Okay. So we'll go through this fairly quickly because a lot of this is review, but feel free to stop me and ask any questions. Our organization design workshop led the overall process here. We had some local team members, Burns and Bell, doing transportation, utilities, council, public outreach, and planning, and also Spencer Leonard Street, the land use law firm here in Kansas City. They reviewed the overall comprehensive plan document, top to bottom, and made sure that according to Missouri planning law, it's up and up for that. The comprehensive plan, we addressed the overall vision for the community, land use, transportation, parks. Beyond what most comprehensive plans deal with, we also addressed 4 focus areas, at least in general terms, provide overall a bit more detailed vision for 4 areas. Those are Buckner, Tarsney, and Duncan, Buckner, Tarsney, and Snybar down south, I-70 and Polk out east, and the area kind of right around here, southeast I-70 and the Main Street interchange. We also addressed economic development and implementation, and the reason why this whole plan was done, and we're all through this last year, there was the most recent version of the document done back in 2010, but based upon growth of the last 10 years and really the projected growth of the community in the next 10, 20 years going out, the committee saw the need to really kind of revamp the comprehensive plan and take a little bit further view out, 20 years out, with fresh data and fresh perspective. And I think the growth you've seen here in the community here in the last year, evidenced by building improvements and everything like that, is a sign that, the community is starting to grow again, and this comprehensive plan will hopefully shape that growth here in the next 10 or 20 years. So, as we go through here, we had analysis last fall. We did a community survey, kind of general set of questions online mainly, last fall into January this year. We had 3 public open houses, one in January, one in February, and one
that review the overall vision for the community, review mainly three sets of alternatives for things like land use, transportation, and also what recreation and open space look like in the community. And then back in April, we had our last public open house down at the high school to review the overall preferred plan for the community and some implementation items as well. So over the course of the summer here, we've been working with city staff and also the steering committee, which is about 10 to 15 folks, to review the document and make sure that everyone had seen it and was fine with all the implementation steps mentioned in there, all the policy items. So again, we actually voted to recommend it for approval, not for adoption, but recommended for approval last Wednesday. That's the right phrase, right? And so again, tonight you're seeing this presentation. The next one will be eventually adoption. So we pitched our services, really saying that we would be very strong in public outreach, and the public really provide input here as this comprehensive plan was put together, and that was certainly brought to bear. The community survey had 600 respondents. Public open house altogether had over 500 folks between the three public meetings. The middle one especially had 300 or 400 folks down at the grade school. We also had online input through MindFixer and a project website. And along the way, we talked with various property owners, especially at those focus areas, and also some of the major developers here in town, folks at the chamber, local banking people, and just neighborhood representatives around the way. We developed plans and iterated them throughout the course of the year. Now I was going to go into some of the main takeaways from the major elements of the comprehensive plan. Again, you'll receive this document about a week and a half ago, so hopefully you've had a chance to kind of look through it. Nice opportunity to ask questions and so forth. The transmission map is, give me a little, so, which button again? Center one, all right. Transportation is fairly straightforward. We have, of course, several, working. Well, anyway, Buckner Tarsi is the main north-south director here. It's the main interchange right now on I-70. As you look at transportation, community lacks north-south connections. Main Street is the only one that goes clear through from across both I-70 and the railroad tracks. And so as you look forward at the future in terms of what's projected for primary arterials and also secondary roads, there's a couple of main points here. La Folte right now is a little county road out here, Blacktop Road, but eventually it could become more of a major north-south arterial serving the eastern part of Green Valley. Coupled with a new interchange, potentially I-70 in La Folte. Right now it's a little overpass. That bridge is fairly old. There's opportunity there to really do a brand new interchange there between Oak Grove and Green Valley there on the east side. And since it's a fairly open area, it's perhaps easier than doing something over on the west side. And back in 06 and 07, the city did some studies and engineering work on potential interchange I-70 and Tyre. That still shows a possibility in the current comprehensive plan, but I think La Folte is more likely to happen. Tyre could just become like an overpass across I-70 in terms of land that would need to be acquired. We just need land for the bridge, but to do interchange there would require a lot more land that's already developed, like grass armadillos around there, things like that. So the north-south connections are pretty key. Other roads here is following section line roads that are largely there already, like Pink Hill and Truman and so forth. Down to the south, someday these west roads here might become more dominant as well. Okay. Now in terms of parks and recreation and open space, this is a fairly key point here. A dominant feature of the area around Green Valley is the Sidebar Creek, which goes all the way down south here in Jackson County, up through Green Valley, makes a right turn and goes through Oak Grove, and eventually down to the Circuit River. The floodplain is fairly wide. That blue area is actually the 100-year floodplain. And this map basically shows in green all the areas that, in terms of projected future land use, would be either recreational or open space. By recreational, we're saying here is those land uses could be not just parks, that could be agricultural tourism, could be things that are more suitable for low-lying areas, right? But the key here is that in terms of floodplain, a lot of communities are really being more proactive in terms of floodplain planning, not allowing big, huge developments down the floodplain, not allowing certainly homes down in floodplains, given the history of flooding here in Missouri and Kansas. But really, communities see floodplains and areas around those more areas for recreation and open space, kind of lower intensity uses. And this gained acceptance from the public and from stakeholders here as we went through the process. So it's a fairly dominant feature here. And all these tributaries of the Sidebar are areas that could be trails in the future, open space connections, things like that. And those things there actually were shown in the previous comprehensive plan, so that's actually nothing that's terribly new here in the comprehensive plan. But again, connections from the Sidebar Creek up to Lindell Park, And really, going forward, the Park and Open Space element of comprehensive plan calls for more neighborhood parks and planning for them in a more integrated way as the community will grow towards the north and to the east. Now, in terms of future land use, a few comments first on all these maps here. The previous comprehensive plan shows some areas up here towards the north. You know, the current city limits have the flagpole out to this parcel here on, it's Fargo, is that road, right? But the area to the east wasn't really colored in, the areas to the south weren't colored in either. In all of our planning, as part of the comprehensive plan, the maps were expanded out. You can see they go really as far east as the Oak Grove city limit, over towards Blue Springs, and as far north as Truman Road, and down towards Negbin and Major down there. A couple of reasons for that. One, these communities are all growing. Blue Springs expanding outward, so is Oak Grove. This is our opportunity, really, in terms of future land use for these maps, to articulate what we would like to see in the areas around Green Valley, even if certain areas don't become part of Green Valley in the next 20 to 30 years. So it's really being proactive about land use and really kind of expanding our view of the world here in Jackson County. You know, it's a 20-year plan. In reality, the city will not fill all of this box within 20 years. That's fairly certain. You may still parts of it, but in terms of direction, you know, I think most folks think it's going to go north and perhaps east over time, so that's likely to go south. But the map encompasses all areas in case it shifts direction and goes a different way over time, instead of having a map only goes one direction or another. But in terms of future land use, we're showing the area in light green as we call recreation or open space. Again, covering the floodplain joint areas around the side of our creek area. Most of the land uses here that are an existing part of Green Valley retain the same land use designation. All the areas of existing neighborhoods retain the single-family detached color. Existing industrial areas and so forth. We've colored in blue for schools. A couple things to note here as you look out from the kind of farther reaches of Green Valley. That blue spot there, that's been added even since the open house. The school district has purchased a fairly large parcel up there north of Pink Hill that could be a spot for a future second high school on the north side. So definitely wanted to color that in and make sure that shows what future land use is kind of a given. So, you know, obviously neighborhoods might develop around that over time. A couple other things to mention, the area around the Fultz, we'll get into a bit more detail in a few minutes, but that, since it could be a key location of the interchange there, we see a mixture of retail and residential, and it's kind of key of what Greg talked about a few minutes ago, a potential business park location over here on the east side. And then to the north and to the south, just kind of logically, it's fairly typical if you look around at most cities growing in this country. You know, about every mile or so, you see kind of a node or concentration of greater intensity of development. So these are kind of representative, they aren't absolutely fixed in stone. But they show that, you know, as you go logically out towards the major section line roads like Pink Hill, Argo, and True Road and so forth, and even down towards the south, that's where you might get a bit more multifamily uses, more retail, things like that, and the lower intensity stuff, like single-family neighborhoods, your typical neighborhoods you see in town, that would be kind of filled in between. So this is a major point of the future land use map. One general comment to make, and just for folks in the audience who may not know it, our comprehensive plan's land use map is not fixed in stone. It's a vision of the community. It's not changing the underlying zoning today whatsoever. In general, as you look at planning in the United States and Missouri, the general idea is that if you move forward with rezonings and with development proposals in the future, you want to ideally tie your zoning and rezoning decisions to the comprehensive land use plan here, but it's not fixed in stone. This is not law. It's a guide. Okay, so in living out here right now, it's still unincorporated Jackson County, but it's really a saying this is a view of how the city sees this developing in the future. Okay. So looking a bit more closely at I-70 and the Fultz, again, this could be a major north-south road with interchange here. When we say north-south road, it's more like could be a 4 to 6 lane arterial, so it could become like an Amsterdam Parkway, perhaps. A nicely designed, really set up completely corridor that would attract development, really make for higher quality development here. So again, of course, closer to the interstate is where you more likely would have your red color there. That's kind of higher intensity retail uses. So the stuff you see out in the area, like the Kohl's and all that, can go there. The red, that kind of reflects a mixed use color. That could become like a lifestyle center. So it could become a development that has, you know, smaller shops, be it a small little main street, something like that. Perhaps some residential integrated with it. As you move away towards the north, the density development would logically kind of go down as you go through the interstate towards more typical single-family residential, further to the north of I-70, eventually kind of go up against this open space area along the side of the creek and the floodplain up that way. And this area, this side of the interstate was kind of viewed as the more logical site for a major retail area of that type, given that it's fairly level and the visibility from I-70 is pretty decent. The visibility down to the south is not too bad either, but it's a little bit lower lying ground down here. And it's also positioned between the interstate and a major rail line here, so it's a logical place we would put, a lot of industrial or business park uses. One thing we learned through the first part of the process was that the city is always viewed as a spot for new development for site selection nationally. Greg just mentioned some of this stuff earlier. But if the city has larger parcels available for development, there's other candidates, other companies out there that you might be running for that you weren't running for previously for the last 5-10 years. One thing that I think we heard through the process was that the city was lacking a bigger business park development like this to attract essentially bigger fish. So an area around here could be developed for that going forward. Now, a large part of this area actually is owned by one person, for development basically. And so it's a pretty unique opportunity to have a major interchange, a major north-south road, and land controlled by one entity or one developer. Usually get less kind of scattered development, more of a united vision, more coordinated development, higher quality development over time. So if there's a development potential, it's pretty good from that regard. We also looked at Buckner, Tarzany, and Duncan, and again, these next few images here are just kind of illustrative. They're visions of what these different focus areas may become and not absolutely definitive. But, Duncan, Buckner, Tarzany is about a mile or so north of I-70. Not really developing right now, but after the Green Valley Marketplace fills out and its residential development goes to the north in the next 10, 15 years, it could become the next area for a shopping center, kind of a neighborhood focus area. And so as you would look for development growth in this area, this could be a guide for how you might look at development in that area. It's kind of a template for how you might evaluate and look at development going forward. So a couple things to mention here. Marivic and its buildings down here, we talked to Marivic, and they definitely see themselves staying put for 20 or 30 years. That state is purple. It's kind of business park use. The other areas around here, these three corners are fairly level in terms of topography, so good sites for really a variety of stuff, for retail development, for multifamily, for residential, and so forth. So a few things to mention. You'll notice that the residential is back behind some of these retail areas in red, or shopping areas. There's actually little streets or kind of connections back from the residential towards the shopping centers. So as opposed to, a lot of suburban areas in America where if you're living behind a IV or a shopping center, you have to go a few blocks around to get your gallon of milk. It's just saying from a good planning perspective, a good design idea to have connections between those different land uses for walkability and connectivity. We also show little green lines there. That's basically saying we should have some open space, little walkability trails, things like that to create higher quality of life and a more attractive development. And the other thing is that some of these buildings are actually oriented up towards the street. So you can still have what a lot of development you see in the suburban areas, all the chain stores, things like that. But if you orient them up towards the street, you avoid having a big sea of parking that people did not like as much these days. And you have buildings up close, it makes for a more attractive look and feel going down the main drag like Buckner, Tarzany, or Duncan. This little area here is actually a tributary of the Snybar, so there could be a location for a trail through this way to come down to the major parks in Green Valley to the south and east. And again, on the west side could be an area for additional residential development. Then we look down here at Buckner, Tarzany, and Snybar Boulevard. This little area here is the Nelson Farm. That's on the west side of the road on the ridge. It kind of has a little hedgerow on either side of the main driveway there. The city actually owns some lands to the north and to the west of that farm. And so given that, one major idea that came out of this whole process was the idea of at least exploring moving or developing some municipal land uses down there, municipal civic buildings down there. The current city hall we're in right now is 14 years old, but it's already at capacity. As the city grows, it could be expanded or it could be relocated potentially. And the community center across the way, we hear is already at capacity, especially during the summertime. We hear it's almost like elbow to elbow with kids in the swimming pool. And so as the town grows here, we're seeing potentially about 15,000, 20,000 more people here in the next 20 years. You're going to need larger facilities. And so one idea here is to explore on city-owned land locations for a new city hall, perhaps, a new be some classrooms here in the area. And actually, that area there is shown for public education / university. So it's a spot where the city could actually attract a community college or community college branch or an extension service of the university, say Mizzou, something like that. But, you know, given the kind of attractiveness of the park and floodplain area here, coupled with aquatic center, things like that around here, it could be a pretty nice location to locate some sort of educational campus in the future. And the areas over here to the east side of Tarzan, currently it's small acreage, 2-3 acres per home. And again, this is all kind of a long-term view, but over time that could be developed as fairly normal suburban housing. And closer to Snibar and Tarzan could be a little shopping area and perhaps a multifamily nearby. And of course, as we're showing in this diagram, there could be connections for walkability, people walking and biking to and from the different lands here, and also across Tarzan over to, say, the community center. So if someone's living here, there could be crosswalks and trails and things like that, and sometimes in the road and the other. And as we look at the area here, we're really kind of north of the existing downtown Green Valley, between essentially Walnut up to I-70 and from Main Street going over to the east here. We took a look at this and a couple different options. And again, this is all kind of a vision. I got buy-in from the community, buy-in from the steering committee, but some ideas are really what to do with some of this area here. Now, the city, you know, we're sitting right here in the city hall. Armstrong Park is right there. The community center is right about there. And then there's additional land to the east. There's the old track to the old high school, the community center. And there's some other lands here kind of to the south and east of Armstrong Park. So what you've got here is kind of a unique situation, unique opportunity where the city owns a decent area of acreage, visible in very close proximity, good visibility from a major area. So if the city were to relocate the city hall or relocate the community center or at least parts of those things, there'd be some land available to do something, right? So what this looks at is basically a vision of how this town could create kind of an expansion of downtown or even a new downtown north of the current area of Main Street, stretching up towards I-70, right? So given the proximity to I-70 and really the growth the community is going to see over time, these are a couple of different options. This first one shows the existing Armstrong Park right down here being preserved and essentially kind of a little Main Street area developing on a square around it. You know, so you have some stores and retail on the bottom, and on the top floor you have apartments or offices above, right? So what you typically see in Midwestern downtowns, 2 stories and stuff, and, you know, with the Main Street kind of orientation and so forth. That can encircle Armstrong Park, it can actually stretch down towards the south and around. A lot of things here around towards I-70 are more what you see, we might call conventional development. So the McDonald's, Dan's Auto and Sonic would all say, the areas here to the north, that could actually be a good location for a hotel, right here at the southeast corner of I-70 and Main Street. And then when 40 got realigned here, it opened up parcels for development east of Owida, so that could be another office building or perhaps another restaurant, a sit-down restaurant perhaps, for folks getting off I-70. And there actually would be room here off towards I-70 in the parking lots for what we might call a junior box store. So that refers to something like a Bed Bath & Beyond or something like that, right? And in the area to the east, it's colored with purple buildings. That area right now is currently occupied by smaller industrial buildings. Those buildings could stay there in their current state, or people could redevelop them. Essentially, this option is saying that area east of basically the track could just kind of stay as is in terms of land use. And hopefully, you know, kind of, if people see the need, redevelop or kind of refurbish buildings there over time. The second option is a little more expansionary. This assumes that that area to the east of the tracks, all that light additional stuff, could be redeveloped into more retail over time. Given the fact we've got a nice new interchange here, and perhaps a Main Street area develops as well. So this option assumes that Armstrong Park would be perhaps relocated to other areas here within the focus areas, the little green areas where Armstrong Park and its, you know, things like the swing sets and so forth can be moved around. And it shows more of a sincere east-west Main Street, a block and a half long with, you know, 2-story buildings lining it, going from Main Street kind of through where we're sitting right now, down toward the Civic Park down at the east end. So this way you get a Main Street, kind of a nice little downtown development. And up against I-70, we have room for a big box store, so that would be your Target. These are little restaurant pad sites, so you're name your favorite chain, you know, Cracker Barrel or Applebee's or whatever you have here. Again, a hotel and office up in the northwest corner here. Now, in both plans, we have a little star there, that's showing where if someday we get a commuter rail coming up Kansas City along the Kansas City Center line, that's where Rosewood is a great location to have the actual stop here in Green Valley. You're probably going to get one, not two, it sounds like. Other location mentioned was over on Kirby, but over here might be a really good spot because you can be near this retail development, logical place to have people get off the train and go to stores on their way home, things like that. And also, a lot of the parking here for these stores could be used for a commuter rail as well. But of course, that's probably a long ways off. Now, the areas to the south and east for both these plans is colored as recreation or open space. So anything that's there right now can stay there, according to this comp plan, for indefinite. It's just talking about in the future, things down there would ideally be recreational oriented. You can define that as you wish, I think. But the key was as you head towards the creek, you want to have, less intensive development. So you wouldn't want to put your big box store or big industrial park right down next to the creek, given as a major environmental amenity, and also just given the flood potential down that way. So those are focus areas for, area between downtown and I-7. So implementation, there's some key things we talked about along the way with the steering committee, and we mentioned the planning commission last week. Coming out of the comprehensive plan, all these areas that we're showing with land use colors outside the Green Valley city limits, including the south, there's nothing on the table right now saying the city wants to expand or annex certain properties, and the actual document, if you look through it, we spell that very carefully how annexation law works in this area. There's procedures for voluntary annexation if you and your neighbors want to join the city, or if there's involuntary annexation, there's also procedures for that. But on both sides, you have to go through a formal process of hearings and so forth. The city has to show they can provide services, so that doesn't happen overnight. And again, here for the comprehensive plan, we just talked about, where annexation might happen. One general statement made in the comprehensive plan is the city probably should look to expand over time for a few different reasons. One, because you're going to be growing in terms of population, so you'll need more land and inventory really before you to develop, and if things are annexed before development just shows up, you can proactively plan for infrastructure and make sure it's planned out the right way as opposed to being reactive to development. Another point is that your neighbors to the west and east, like Blue Springs and Oak Grove, Blue Springs has been expanding and annexing obviously for 20, 30, 40 years. Oak Grove has not done a whole lot for the last 10, 15 years, but it has potential to. And I think one key out of this plan, and really I think it's been discussed in the committee off and on for many years, is that it'd be a good chance now or the next 5, 10 years to really firm up your borders and make sure you articulate where you are versus your neighbors. And also to the north and south, make sure you have enough land to move and grow in the future. So in developing a formal annexation plan, that'd be a next step, actually go through and analyze where exactly you would expand in the future and how you might service this area. The document itself has likely areas for annexation, and those are pretty logical. One would be to the north, we've already seen residential development. Another would be to the east, over by the Fultz, as mentioned. That interchange would go in there, that'd be a pretty good spot for growth in the future. The less likely area, really for probably long term, is really south of town. There's a lot more issues down there to expand infrastructure, and really there's a lot more folks down there living on smaller acreages that want to remain in the country. So the city's more likely to move in other directions from there. The other thing we talked about was establishing extraterritorial planning authority. So we saw all the areas kind of colored in land use areas around Green Valley, but it's all those areas that are not in city limits right now are technically right now controlled by Jackson County for their land use authority, what may be approved or not approved. So with the assumption that you're going to expand in certain areas to the outside city limits to the north, might become part of the town over time, the argument or the thought is that you should have some say in what happens there really in the near term to make sure it doesn't impede your ability to grow in the future. So for example, if somebody wanted to put a huge industrial plant in an area that you can see as being a neighborhood in the future, theologically you want to have some sort of say. The idea here is to establish at least some sort of authority or at least review of land use decisions for areas in Jackson County unincorporated that are outside of your city limits within some given radius, say, of the city. It could be 2 or 3 miles. You have to define that. But the next step here would be to actually talk to Jackson County legislature and so forth, and actually perhaps formally develop a protocol for that moving forward. We mentioned annexation. Some could be strategic. So for example, if someone owned a large piece of land that would really be in the path of growth and wanted to join the city, that might be a good piece of area to have the city expand into going forward. But again, the city has to show it can provide for services and all that. So thinking about that now is a good thing for the next steps. Now, in terms of if the city wants to expand, say, to the north or south, we know that to the north of town, for example, the water authorities that control the water service north of town, if you want to annex certain property, right now the rate paid to basically compensate in these areas out of the current water system and the city's water system is pretty high per acre. You might want to see over time if you can negotiate more formalized agreement with the water authorities, make it easier to expand and to annex certain properties that is great for development over time. Some other key action items, we talked about parks and open space, so we've given some general kind of thought and vision about parks and open space and comprehensive plan. One next step would be to, at some point here, next few years, do a revamp of the city's park and open space plan for the state, so that gets into more details down the level of how many jungle gyms in certain parks, things like that, and also more into programming and services and things like that, so it's kind of canon detail. The city actually considered doing a parks plan as part of this, a more detailed parks plan attached to the comprehensive plan. Decided to keep it more general right now with the town plan, this would be a nice next step. And again, as mentioned, the city hall and community center could relocate over time to a different part of the community, perhaps south. Given the community center is fairly filled up right now, and City Hall, doesn't have a lot of room for expansion either, you might want to look at the feasibility of moving the City Hall and or the community center to make room for development here in this area. So if you like that idea of developing city-owned lands right around here as perhaps a new downtown or an expansion of downtown, a logical next step would be a study that really makes sense from a dollars and cents perspective. You can get into nitty-gritty detail of that as part of this plan. Another item here is to update development codes, and that could include that downtown overlay district. So I was here last week, and you all had a study session about that. Cities normally every few years or every now and again look at the development codes to make sure it makes sense for what's happening in their communities. So that's just kind of a normal thing you want to do anyway. That's a nice next step out of this process. And those focus areas we showed for those different 4 areas, these are again just kind of visions in the comp plan right now. They could be more formally adopted, each one per se, to get a little more heft going forward. If you really like the view of Fultz or how you might see development of it, Duncan and so forth, more formally adopted the sub-area plans, focus areas as sub-area plans as part of the comp plan in the future. So that's our presentation. We really enjoyed working on this. We enjoyed being in Green Valley, all the good folks here. It's been a pleasure, and I guess now it's open for any questions.
Anyone on the board have any questions?
We've already been down this.
Have to be on the board.
Nothing at this time.
No.
Big document to digest.
Yes, it is. Yeah. We're thorough. Hopefully it's fairly good read, though.
All right, thank you. Okay, next item then will be on resolutions.
Resolution 14-41.
A resolution by the Board of Aldermen, City of Green Valley, authorizing the city administrator to purchase materials for the construction of the Skybar Sidewalk Project. Resolution R14-41.
Mayor, I move that we accept resolution number R1441 as read.
I have a motion from Alderman Schaper to approve resolution R14-41. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Alderman Arnold. Any discussion?
I had, one thing confused me here. It says 4-foot sideways and, or sidewalk, and it's got asterisk, parts that will be 5 foot for ADA. Why would it not all be 5 foot for the ADA? I don't see where you'd...
Yeah, the ADA requirements, well, it's not going to be 5 foot the entire length because it just adds additional cost. ADA requires that every so often, I believe it's 100 feet, you have to have what's called a bump out. So it actually widens out to 5 foot so that somebody could turn a wheelchair around if they so need it.
I didn't understand why only portions of it.
Yeah, yeah. So, and just with the area, with it being on that dam too, it wasn't just adding another foot of concrete. It was a foot of concrete, subgrade preparation all the way down to the water.
It's nice to see this get done finally. I know you and I worked on this a couple of years back trying to get, I forget, I'm getting old. It was, we were trying to get funding through
Safe routes?
Safe
Yeah.
routes to get it done, thanks, Ron.
Yeah.
Do safe routes to get it that way, to save the citizens and taxpayers money, we couldn't get it done that way, so then we stepped back till we bought the equipment so we could do it in-house, and the savings is huge from 80, I don't have it pulled up right now, but it's 80-some thousand to 40-some thousand doing it in-house,
Yeah.
so.
Saves about $39,000 to do it in-house.
It'd been nice to have it done last year, but, you know, to save taxpayers $40,000, $39,000, I think it was worth it.
Yeah.
So, and I'm glad to see it getting done.
Absolutely.
There'll be a lot of people, but they're gonna be really excited to see that get done.
I think just getting the people an opportunity to stay off the street, walking, because there are a lot of people all hours of the morning out there before the sun comes up, that can make it a lot safer for them when they during their walking or jogging, so.
Yeah.
I think it's good to be getting it moved on.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, refresh my mind, when do you think that's gonna get done?
We'll probably start, work within the next week or two on it. It'll be probably about a 2 to 3 week project to complete though, just with the manpower that we have.
That's great.
We hope to have it completed by the 1st of November.
Thanks, Ron.
See nothing else? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
6-0, Mayor.
Next item is city attorney's reports.
Nothing to report, Your Honor.
Next up is city administrator staff reports.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Shannon Davies has a report for the board.
Just a real quick follow-up from our last meeting. I know there was some questions about our fall baseball scheduling. I think all of y'all had received the email that included our fall baseball schedules. We also have them on our city website as well. And just so you all know, they are fluid, that as we encounter rainouts and team conflicts and so forth, the games do get shifted and changed to different locations and dates and so forth. But as it stands right now, the copies that you do have are the current copies. And lastly, there was some discussion about our geese out at the Butterfly Trail, and we should have the geese deterrents up by the end of this week. So we'll follow up with you on that when we have it done. That's all I have.
Okay. And I've got something to hand out, sir. I think about a month ago, there was some discussion about performing a traffic study on Artie Mize. Just wanted to hand the results out to you and give you a real quick recap of what staff found. 11 pages long, technical engineering document, very dry read. So, recap it, and then if you would like to delve any further into it, you certainly can. We completed the traffic study. It was from September 4th to September 10th. As you go through and read this, you can see that, in large, the traffic volumes for tractor trailers have dropped. Back in 2010, we measured in the same period of time, we measured 85 tractor trailers, and in 2014, we only had 46. A tractor trailer is defined as anything between 37 and 60 feet. So we know that a portion of those 46 are most likely RV traffic coming in and out to the RV dealership over there. We were kind of shocked to see the decrease, but especially considering that we have an increase in vehicle traffic. In this most recent study, there was about a 2% increase to 3,154 daily vehicles that passed through daily. In 2010, it was 2,700. Really, it didn't show anything as far as a marked increase in traffic. What we did notice is that tractor-trailer traffic has dropped by about half, and so the recommendation of the city engineer and city staff as well, since this is a main arterial road, is not to further restrict any traffic. But I'll let you guys take a look at the document, and if you would like to ask questions about it tonight, you can, or we can bring it back up in a future board meeting if you would like. The other items I have, I want to make sure that the board received my email last Wednesday whenever we were at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. I misspoke. I said that the meeting was October 15th. It was actually October 8th, Wednesday, October 8th at 6 p.m. That'll be our next work session with Planning and Zoning to discuss the overlay district. moving forward, we also, want to make sure that we have responses. Did we receive responses for the budget workshop from everyone?
We've received most of them,
Okay.
that can be confirmed with.
So October 6th, and then 2 weeks after that, isn't that? I don't have my calendar with me.
The 6th and the 22nd were our
6th,
two.
okay. 20th? Okay.
Was it the 20th?
Yeah, the 6th and 27th. So those are the 2 nights that we'll look at sitting down, having a special workshop to discuss the fiscal year 2015 budget. So if you have not responded, just let us know, and I'll continue to remind you. I'll probably send out a reminder email next week about it. And then last, the only other thing that I was going to mention, Mr. Martinet talked about, we received an application for the demo of McShop up on the northwest corner of the interchange, and probably within the next 2 weeks, you should see some action on that. So, but I have nothing further.
Okay. Next up then is Board of Aldermen reports and comments. Alderman Arnold?
Nothing at this time.
Alderman West?
Nothing at this time.
Alderman Dudley?
Nothing at this time.
Alderman Scully?
Thank you, Ryan. Nothing else.
Alderman Schaefer?
Nothing at this time, Mayor.
Alderman Johnson?
I got some complaints on our customer service in City Hall recently. Apparently, on our water, when we used to shut water service off, we used to make courtesy calls the day before, and we've stopped that. I don't know if it was necessary. People thought it was a good thing that we did it. But more concerning than that, they had a woman that was 87 years old that her grandson brought in a check to restore the service, and they wouldn't accept it from him, wouldn't accept that check. They had to bring in their check. She had to physically bring in the check. And I can understand why it would make a difference who brought in the check if it was to pay for it.
Okay. Kathy, do you know anything about that?
I don't know anything about the incident, but I do know that on a shut-off day, it's, I believe it's in the ordinance and policy that they don't accept a check at all. I think it has to be with a credit card or cash or debit card, so.
I know since,
Lots of people bring in checks for other people that we take all the time.
Yeah, okay. They didn't know why.
yeah, as far as the courtesy calls, I started in 2009 as the utility billing supervisor, and I know when I was there, we did not make those calls. We just did the letters. So if it predates that, I mean, we probably have, I would say the night before shutoffs, we have over 100 people on the list.
The night before shut-off, last shut-off, we had almost 150 people on the list.
Yeah.
We didn't have the manpower to call 150 people at 4 o'clock.
Right.
I understand that.
But we'll look into the other incident.
Would that be something if we looked at one, I know we talked about it for other issues, one of those automated calling systems, I don't know. Can that automatically pull that off of, and make the
I don't
call
know if it-
themselves? I mean, I don't know.
I don't know if it could or not.
I know we've kind of talked about it for other notices and stuff. That may be too crazy, I don't know.
The school district does it for.
Yeah, I understand that.
Get a late notice that says, you know, pay by this day.
There used to be calls, and I don't know how long ago that was or whatever.
Okay.
But you know, I would like to see us, you know, get more customer friendly. I mean, this just kind of a spur of different type of situations we get where I don't think we're doing our best to work with the public, and I'd like to try and see that improve. And I understand if we can't make 150 calls on any given afternoon, but you know, at least a good explanation why that, you know, that, because the person talking to you need to know why they wouldn't accept a woman's check. So.
Okay. Yep, we'll definitely research it.
All right, next up is Mayor's Report, and I believe, I've been talking about customer service with Ryan and Jamie. I believe we just had a volunteer to sit on that committee if we put a committee together. All right. So I know it's something we had talked about, so I know when we get board members on there, so let's get this going. And I know I think I mentioned you to him also, so.
Okay.
Contact him about that. Only thing I have is I am happy to report that Ken Murphy has graciously volunteered to look at street lights for us in town. after
That's what we'll call it.
after I nominated him and Ryan Hunt seconded it, because I've been getting a lot of calls on, especially, we've had auto break-ins, house break-ins, things like that, street lights. We don't really right now have a policy per se on where we place them. It's kind of someone calls and asks for one, go to KCP&L and put it out there. But then sometimes we get the neighbors calling us up complaining why we put a street light that's right in their house now. So,
Could I add to that, Mayor?
what's that?
I apologize, Ryan, I meant to say thank you earlier. Ryan and I have been working on that same issue of trying to get a shield for the last 7 months, and I forget the street number, but we finally got it accomplished, and thank whoever we need to for staff for getting that done.
Okay, absolutely.
They called me, and I actually went by there, and they were really happy, and it's working really good, so, sorry about that, Mayor. I forgot.
Okay.
Thanks, Ron.
So, kids are gonna look at, see what we can put together on street lights and street light policy, but we're not just randomly sticking them all over town. That doesn't make any sense, because I know in the long run, they end up costing us money. So if we have something set forth where we have designated areas that go, we make sure that, things are lit up good enough that it'll work. So I don't know how he's gonna do that, so I don't know if he does either, but I have faith.
Called look and see what other people are doing.
That is all I have. We have a need for an executive session for the issues pertaining to personnel. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn an executive session for personnel.
Absolutely.
Second.
Thank you, Ted.
I got a lot of them. First, Alderman Schaefer, second, Alderman West. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Alderman Arnold?
Yes.
Alderman West?
Yes.
Alderman Headley?
Yes.
Alderman Scully?